we're gonna get started here, guys. Obviously, I could talk about Dominique Wilkins and give you. It would take me probably a half an hour just to get through all of the stuff that he's accomplished. So I'm not going to go through all of that, other than to say that, Dominique is a true all-time great, absolute legend. And for all he accomplished off the court, he's accomplished as much, or on the court, he's accomplished as much off the court, and is just a phenomenal guy. I met him through Dan Vasquenza last year, and went to his gala birthday party. I'm going again, and Neek, this year it's January 10th, which is my birthday. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to pretend that whole night that the party is actually for me. And if people decide to sing happy birthday, I'm gonna soak it all in.
You know what? I'm gonna have them have you a very small cake on the side.
A slice. I'll take a slice.
Get you a slice. I'll have a slice with not so many camels.
Exactly. Kathy, get us started. We got a little intro for you here, Dominique. Neek, what do you think? That's not a bad intro.
That was a pretty impressive intro there. I see you guys put a lot of work in on this intro.
We put a lot of work into it, my friend.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you for joining us. Guys, we are here with Dominique Wilkins. I am pinching myself. I have so many questions for you. If you don't mind, I'm going to start here. So you were born in Paris, France.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about being born in Paris, but more so, can we start with, tell me about Gertrude. Tell me about your mom. I believe your mom was born on Valentine's Day, which is appropriate because
yeah. Wow, you did your homework here, man. Yeah, you're right. That's pretty impressive. My mom was a great woman. For the most part, most of our life, she raised 8 kids by herself after my mom and father divorced. But the reason why I was born in Paris, France, my dad was in the military, and we was born outside of Paris in a little small town called Sorbonne, military town, and we stayed there the first 5 years of my life before we moved to Baltimore, Maryland. It was just my older sister and I. And that's where it started.
And what role, I think sometimes our moms play huge roles in the people that we become.
Mm-hmm.
What was that for you with your mom, Dominique?
She was believe it or not, was the driving force in my life and my career early on. Because, someone had to step up and be the man of the house. And, I was the eldest son at that time. And so she pushed me to excel in whatever I wanted to do. So, you often hear the term that, a woman can't raise a man. Well, that's not true, because she raised 4 of them. So it just gave me the courage to leave home early and find my own way and my own career. And to the day she passed, she was always on our case all the time, no matter how old we were. So, it was a good thing and a bad thing. You know, it was a bad thing because she was so aggressive, you know, the way
Mhm.
she raised, especially the boys. But it was great because it pushed us. It pushed us to be better than us and become something bigger than ourselves. So yeah, she was definitely the main source of our inspiration in our family.
How did you get into basketball, Neek? And at what point in your life did you know I'm a little different from everybody else?
You know what? It started for me at a very early age. I probably was playing basketball, you know, since I was 4 or 5 years old in Baltimore. Because Baltimore, where I live, where I grew up at, basketballs was everything. It was basketball or track, basically.
Mhm.
And in my neighborhood, we had a lot of, you know, asphalt, you know, playgrounds that everybody played on the playground. And so that's where I learned how to play basketball, street ball, in the streets of Baltimore. And it was the older guys who kind of took me under their wing and said, you know, we see something special in him. So he gonna be the first to get out of this neighborhood. And it was hands off in that neighborhood because they wanted me to be the first one to make it out of that neighborhood. So I could go anywhere in the neighborhood, nobody ever bothered me. And that was because of the older cats that was in the neighborhood who protected me.
Interesting. So, did you start to stand out? Was it purely your athleticism? Was it your tenacity, your work ethic? Like, what was it
I
that
think it started out with my athleticism because we had a 11-foot goal in our neighborhood. Nobody in the neighborhood could dunk on that goal. And at 12,
11 feet?
yes, and at 12 years old, I was the only one who could dunk on 11-foot goal. And they would make bets and saying he can't do that. He's too small. But I was the first one and the only one to dunk on 11-foot goal in my neighborhood. And
How
so,
tall were you when you were 12?
oh man, about 5'9", maybe
You
five
were
ten.
5'9", dunking on an 11-foot net.
Yeah,
That's insane.
yeah. And so that's my plus doing some things in the neighborhood probably shouldn't have been doing. You know, mischief that was in. I used to jump over fences, cars, all kind of stuff when I was young. But nothing that hurt people. It was just doing stuff that young kids do. You know, in the neighborhood. But my mom quickly reeled me back in and said, because you didn't want to feel her wrath. So you rather fly right and instead of dealing with that. And then it started with my tenacity because I've always played the game at one speed and that was all out. And in the neighborhood, the older guys used to make me play against guys in the neighborhood who was a year or two older than me for money. And when you got guys like that betting on you, you didn't want to lose because you don't want to feel their wrath either. But they had so much respect for me and they believed so much in me that they knew that I would be the first one to make it out of that neighborhood in Baltimore.
Incredible. And you certainly did with a bang.
Mhm.
Neek, I've always thought this about you, and this is kind of a hard thing to say about somebody who's universally regarded as one of the all-time greats, but I honestly think you are underrated. You know,
I
when
don't
you look
disagree.
at
I don't
Bird,
disagree.
what's that?
I said I don't disagree.
Yeah.
you know?
When you look at Bird and you look at Jordan and you look at Magic and you look at the incredible supporting cast that they had around them, not to take anything away from them because they were magnificent players,
Mhm.
but you never had that. And I also think because of your incredible athleticism, because of your, spectacular highlight reel dunks, I do think you were underrated, although, everybody
Yeah.
considers you one of the greatest players of all
You know
time.
what?
I guess I'd love your thoughts on that.
I think people don't really understand what I did. They really don't. And the thing I tell people, I said, when you see highlights of me, what do you see? You see slam dunks, high wire act, and all that stuff. But it's very difficult, and I say this over and over again, it's very difficult to get over 26,000 points on dunks. I averaged 2 dunks a game in my career. I was a flat out scorer. A lot of stuff you see guys do today, I was doing back then. Um, and I played with a level of tenacity and emotion in an era where it was very, very physical. And you look at all the games that I won. Yeah, we didn't get to a championship, anything like that. But look at all the games I won consistently over the years in the Eastern Conference, um, with not the same or like supporting cast as those other top teams in the Eastern Conference. And we still come out and win 48, 49, 50, 54, 52 games every year. But I don't think people really understood how difficult that was when you don't have that type of supporting cast like Philly, or you look at what Chicago had, greatest teams ever, and on and on and on and on through that Eastern Conference, and you still stand and hold your own. Jordan and I are the only two folks in NBA history to average over 30 against each other for a whole career against one another. And people
Crazy.
don't really understand and don't look at the stuff that we did, like I did against the greatest players ever.
Let's talk a little bit about that. So I think your battles with, and I'll throw these names out and maybe you have more to add, but Bird, Jordan, Magic. I know that Bird, I think, said you were the toughest person he ever had to defend. He never figured it out.
You know what?
Tell us, you
I
got some
was
great
shocked.
war stories about
You
that. I
know
know.
what? I was really taken back when he said that, but that showed the respect he had for me when he said he respected me more than anybody he's ever played against. Because Bird knew one thing, that I came to play. I didn't talk. I let my game do the talking. I had so much respect for him over the years. As fierce as our battles were, I had so much respect for him to this day. We talk from time to time, and we love to talk about the stories, because we're not competitors anymore. But man, when you're going against a Larry Bird in the Eastern Conference, a Dr. J in the Eastern Conference, a Bernard King in the Eastern Conference, Mark Aguirre, Adrian, I could go on and on just in the Eastern Conference. You had no nights off, and you had to guard that other great small forward. You couldn't hide, and they couldn't hide from you. So I said, I'm playing against some gods, at that small forward position. But I also said to myself, but I'm gonna let them know they're playing against a god on this side. That was just my mentality. Because if you didn't have that mentality, you got embarrassed every night.
How did you keep your composure? Like Bird, who's a notorious trash talker,
Yeah.
and you are not.
Yeah.
How in the did he drive you nuts?
Well, I put it this way, guys I didn't like, I talked a little bit more. But guys I really didn't like, that got on my nerves. And I won't give any names, but it was a few of them. But no, I wasn't a talker, but if a guy talked to me, I had my moments where I let him know, hey, this is how it's going to be all night. You can keep talking, but I'm going to keep coming. But Bird was one of those guys that tried to get in your head. And if he got in your head, you were done. So I never let anybody get in my head, but because it was always a way of gaining advantage over you as an opponent. And a lot of guys, they couldn't come back from that. Once he got in their head, he would destroy him. And he was something else. Then you have a guy like Bernard King, who never said a word. But you look up, he getting 40 or 50 every night on you.
Yeah.
I never feared anybody ever played. That's one of the only guys that made me nervous when I played against him was Bernard King. But you look at the small forwards in the Eastern Conference. It was crazy. I mean, guys like Orlando Woolridge, the late Orlando Woolridge, God bless him. He was 6'10", and he was built like Atlas, playing the three, 6'10". And so those are the guys I had to go against every night. Terry Cummings, 6'10", 250, 260. They were threes, Today's world, they'd be power forwards with skill.
What you've got to have a great Jordan story. You've got to have 100 great Jordan stories.
Why you want me to start?
Where do you start? I don't know. You got a good one for us?
I got one. I mean, there's a lot of. Well, I tell you, we were playing in the playoffs against Chicago, and Jordan got hurt, and they took him out on a stretcher. And I said, oh, we got these son of a bitches now. We got them. Jordan, he hurt. We come out of the locker room at halftime, and he walks out. And I'm like, what? I thought he was hurt. I thought he was done. They say he was done for the rest of the series. Well, he came back and got like 30 something, and they swept us in that series. And he was one of the most resilient guys I've ever seen play the game. Ever seen to play the game. And not only that, he would do stuff that make you drop your jaw. Like one time, I think I had 57 3/4 in Atlanta. We went back to Chicago, and he walks in our locker room. I'm like, the hell is he doing in our locker room? Anyway, he walks by me. He walks by Kevin Willis. He gets to Randy Whitman, who was our shooting guard, and tapped him on the butt. He said, lace him up. It's going to be a long night. And turned around and walked out. And I'm shocked. I didn't know what to say, and I'm pointing. I'm like, well, you tell that son of a bitch, Scottie Pippen, I'm going to kick his ass, and he had 60 that night.
Oh my God.
60,
What?
Yeah, but it was a close game,
How much of his greatness, Neek, was his mental toughness versus his athleticism?
He was an assassin. He really was. Then he had a guy on the other side of him by the name of Scottie Pippen, who I totally forgot, one of the greatest small forwards ever played this game, who was also an assassin. And so, when you play with a guy like Michael, particularly in Scottie's case, you can't help but become the same type of mentality. And his skill level was, unmatched. The things he could do on the floor, on both ends of the floor. He was pretty. That's why when I hear a lot of comparisons, I don't believe in comparisons and all that stuff because it's really unfair, different areas and different. But how can you put anybody over that guy?
Yeah,
Michael was something.
Human highlight film. Who gave you that nickname?
That nickname, man. Most people think I got that nickname in the pros or college. I really didn't. I got that name in high school. In 11th grade, 11th grade, it was a camp in Holmesdale, Pennsylvania called 5 Star. You don't know if you remember 5 Star basketball?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was run by Howard Garfinkel, and I remember in the end of the week in the All-Star game, I scored like 38 or 40 in the All-Star game, and they said, "How is he scoring like that?" Because my game was kind of unorthodox, and they said, "You know what? Forget it. We just gonna call him the human highlight film because we can't understand how he's scoring the way he's scoring." And when I first heard that, I'm like, "Who are they talking about? Is that me?" And I didn't like the name when I first got that nickname. But as I got a little older, I said, "Wait a minute, hold on. I can make a lot of money off this name."
Yeah.
So it stuck, and so I love it now, of course, but because it kind of identified with who I was and who I am now.
When did you know? Did you know back then you were going to be a pro?
I told my mom when I was 12 years old because she came home one day and I came home one day and we didn't have anything to eat, right? And she was crying. And I said, "Don't worry. One day you will never have to worry about another meal again." I was 12 years old. So I worked from the time I was 12 to the time I was 18 and I bought my mom her first house. So I knew at 12 years old, I was going to be a pro.
Wow. Well, you were dunking on an 11-foot rim, so I mean.
Well, the first dunk I had was in a real game was in a league called BNBL in Baltimore. That's a big time league that was really all the great players, street players, and high school players. That's where they played BNBL. And so I remember in a game I came down. Again, I was 12, and I went up and I dunked, and I'm running down the court. Everybody's cheering, and the referee comes down behind me. He said, "Come back." I said, "Why?" He said, "You got fouled. So you got to shoot your free throw." I didn't realize I had got fouled on that play. I was so excited. So I just knew early on. I knew early on that, and plus I was pushed by all the local playground legends that I played with during that time.
How did you were heavily recruited? How'd you wind up at University of Georgia?
You really want to know the real story, or you want me to give you the politically correct?
Nah, this is the Outlier Project. You can give us the real skinny.
I'm I was recruited to every school in the United States at that time, along with Worthy and Isaiah Thomas and Sampson and Bowie. All those came out the same time. All of us recruited by every school around the country. Um, I originally signed a letter of intent with North Carolina State because if you was a great player in the state of North Carolina, you don't leave the ACC.
Yep.
Then it was almost like it was against the law, and I was the first one to buck the system. So um, I went from wanting to stay in North Carolina, and Georgia came out of nowhere. So with 5 other high school All-Americans and some other situations that happened, and when I decided to go to Georgia, that's when all hell broke loose. I got all F's on my transcript, paint poured on my mom's car, cross burning in my yard, just because of my decision.
Really?
And, yeah, and I got arrested. They say I stole a tape out of a department store, which never happened because at the time I had $3,000 in my pocket, and that tape back then was $3 to $5, And so we left at 12 o'clock at night, and because my cousin who was on the police force, he said, "We're not going to take you downtown. We're going to take you home. We're going to pack up everything. We're getting you guys out of town." And University of Georgia was instrumental in getting me out of town that night. And I didn't go back for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a good player when people are that pissed off.
Yeah.
I mean, that is insane that you had to go through that.
Because that year, it was James Worthy and myself who were the top small forwards in the country at that time. And so I remember if you played in if you got selected to play in the state all-star game, you couldn't play in any other, you couldn't play in McDonald's All-American, nothing. That's how much they controlled it. So James Worthy reached out to my high school and said, he was going to play in the McDonald's Classic. I said, well, I'm going to play in the McDonald's Classic too. It was hardly anyone at the state championship, the state all-star game. No one came because both of us went to McDonald's Classic.
That is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. What do you think of the current state of college basketball and I guess even the NBA? I'm curious about that too. Just college has changed so much with NIL.
Well, it's changed so much because guys pretty much don't stay more than 1 year, maybe 2. Yep. And on to the NBA, and you can't really blame these guys. I mean, the money that's out there now. I mean, how do you tell them not to do it? My son is in the same situation, ready to go to college next year, and it's so much comes at these kids. Especially with NIL has changed the way you recruit. It really has, and the money is outrageous, insane. So it's a different look on college basketball now. It's probably why Tony Bennett left Virginia, because they want to deal with that whole NIL frenzy. So yeah, it's a new look on the game, and you got kids that coming in the NBA, they're still babies, but you got 3 years to develop, and if you develop and progress as a player, you're rewarded for that. So you can't blame these kids because, how do you turn all that down? You come from nothing to become a corporation.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, Wemby, I think, was a 5x5 last night, which almost never happens, and he's like, what, 20 years old? It's insane.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy, what, he get 5 steals, 5 blocks. I mean, but he's a phenomenal talent. Period. And I'm happy for a coming from a background where you had a chance to travel the world and be born in another country, and you see these guys who coming out of France now, who's becoming really big time players in the NBA. It's kind of fun to see.
I think you started it all, Nick.
I was the first.
You're still so involved with the Hawks. I was super blessed to be on the floor and just see the reverence that city has for you, and your involvement with the team. What does Atlanta mean to you?
Well, you often say to yourself, you grew up and you was born in a certain place that was your home, right? But I've been here so long, and the fans here has kind of adopted me as their native son. So it's like, when people ask me where I'm from, I'm saying, I'm from Atlanta, even though I'm not from Atlanta,
Yep.
because I've been here so long, and the fans, the city, the state have accepted me in a way that a lot of people don't get accepted. And so that for me means everything. And that's why I've been here so long, and that's why I'm going to be here for a long
Yeah.
time.
No, that city absolutely adores you, which makes sense. So you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think, in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done so many things since then. Tell us a little bit about what what you've been up to. Obviously, doing stuff with Dan with Culture City. You're the
Mm-hmm.
chairman of the board, and I just think that sensory room that I saw
Mm-hmm.
at State Farm Arena, just incredible work that you're doing. And I think people don't know as much about Dominique Wilkins, and those things that you've done after your career. Tell us a little bit about that stuff.
Well, I've been involved in healthcare for over 20 years. It started out for me with, diabetes and hypertension. And I just found a calling, in healthcare, being the chairman of the board for Culture City for all these years. This gave me a new look on how people live every day, especially when you have people in your family who suffer from, either diabetes, hypertension, special, any type of special needs. You see the struggles that family go through. So it's been a mission of mine to try to bring about awareness and opportunity that people can, have options to help themselves. So yeah, healthcare is like a calling for me. But also we have our own foundation. We get ready to launch as well, my wife and I. So it's again about bringing awareness to the different types of issues that people deal with each and every day. And it just for me, it's just a different aspect of my life where I feel like I have to involve myself to, first of all, keep myself busy because I can't sit down. I'm always doing something. But two is I'm always trying to find different opportunities. Now we're in real estate now, that company called Roots, where we help people build wealth in themselves, just by doing the right things. And so it's a lot of those type of things that I do that brings about some peace and belongingness to myself, but also show people that I care about how they live as well.
I love everything that you're doing. And that gala that is in your honor every year for your birthday, and is just tremendous. So I can't wait to see you.
Well, I look forward to seeing you there
in January. I know we're gonna cut the cake together like
yeah, there you
like an
go.
old married couple. It's gonna be great.
You can even wear that hat you got on too.
I know. Well,
I saw that. You didn't think I saw that.
I do. I do. I got my, well, Jesse Itzler is a friend, so he'd be upset with me, and you'd probably be upset with me if I was wearing my Knicks hat. Or, well, no, Jesse wrote that song, so maybe
we'll hang up on you early.
Exactly. Neek, can we have one or two people ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Who's got a question for Neek? Sandy. Sandy Golgart Neek, just so you know, what was it? National slam dunk champion in high school?
Yeah, it was an AAU tournament in Texas.
It was
National
an 8-foot rim,
champion.
though, Neek.
Hey, well,
just doing my best to imitate Neek.
Oh wow,
that's coming very cool. Close, but so I did my best.
What year was that?
1990.
Oh, okay.
Shaq was there.
All right, that means you had some hops, bro.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you know what? One of the most thrilling things as a young player athlete is to get your first dunk. And then you can do it in front of people and you got all eyes on you. It's no better feeling. And I'm sure that's the way it was with you when you won that.
Oh, yeah. I blacked out.
Oh.
I had to look back at the film just to relive it. It was amazing.
Well, I know,
Oh,
Not
go
a
ahead.
lot of people, not a lot of people get a chance to experience that. So, and you know, it's one in a million.
Yeah. Well, you and Jordan inspired me to want to fly just for that brief moment. And it changed my whole life. I do 1,500 stair raises every night before bed just to try to be like you guys.
Well, that's the work you got to put in, and that's a testament to your commitment, you know, to achieving and get to the next level. So that's great, man. It's definitely nice to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. Well, Scott mentioned being an underrated player. I think you have the most underrated haircut in the NBA. I think you changed the whole game. Everybody on my AAU team had the same exact, they were all trying to imitate your haircut.
Hey, look, it was myself and another team. I forget who it was. We kind of started that whole trend, and now
I
people
know.
think today's guys think they invented it. We was doing that way back when, and plus it was a little bit neater. It wasn't
Oh,
crazy
it
and
was
wild.
tight. Yeah.
Like my son's haircut that he has right now, I would never wear that haircut. He has his wild and crazy, but that's the new style now.
Yeah. So my question is, when you look back through your whole playing career, who is one of the coaches that stands out that really helped change your mindset, change your approach to not only the game, but being a great person? And what kind of effect did they have on you?
I would have to say that one of the greatest coaches I ever played for on any level was my high school coach, Dave Smith. Because he said, look, if I can teach you how to be young men and young women, teaching you the game of basketball will be easy. And basically it was telling us to kind of discipline ourselves, grow up, and, you know, really respect what you've been given. And but the trade-off was we were 76-1 in 3 years. So he taught me a lot about myself. He taught us a lot about the game. And we were a unit. We wasn't just Dominique or Alvis or all those great players we had on our high school team. We was a unit, and we played as such. And man, that was a fun run. But his tutelage and his belief in us kind of catapult us in that era at that time to be one of the best high school teams ever.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you.
Well,
You're welcome.
one more question, then we got to let Nick go. John Barrows, you're up.
So, hey, Nick, how you doing, man?
Good. How you?
Dude, I got all my cards. I got your rookie cards here. I'm all nostalgia all the time here, man. I absolutely loved watching you play ball. I'm curious on your takeaways from the NBA to business. Like, what were some of the key things that you brought into the business world that you learned in the NBA that are transferable?
Well, I think, you know, first of all, preparing yourself for life after basketball is one. I think the second thing for me is taking some of the same principles you used in being one of the best players ever to business. It helps you prepare yourself, be willing to learn about what you're trying to accomplish in business. But it becomes another opponent you compete with. And that's what makes it fun for me.
Who's your opponent though? Is it you or is it the competition? Like, how do you look at competition in business now that you're doing what you do?
Because you know what, I think I look at each project differently because I'm looking at that project. Okay, what do I not know, and how do I learn it? And that competitive edge come out and said, I'm going to do whatever's necessary to try to figure out how I succeed in different areas or in this business. So I look at each opportunity differently, but it's the same approach as far as competing.
Love it. Awesome, man. Well, thank you for everything you do and you've done, man. You're an absolute inspiration.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Guys, this has been a special treat. Nick, I cannot thank you enough. I know you are a busy dude. And I'm excited to see you January 10th, my friend.
Look forward to it, man. Thanks for having me on your show, man. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, Nick.
All right, bro. Take care.